Hey, my name is Justin, and today we're asking ourselves the question, what happens if we disobey God? Which, we're not saying that you should, but what happens? This is Internet Church. All right, so here's the plan for Internet Church today. I'm gonna call a handful of my friends and ask about a time that they were disobedient to their parents and maybe what was their punishment like.
Spare the road, spoil the child, yeah?
Yo, Big Rich, your hair looks fantastic.
It's just, God's blessed me.
Question, tell me the story of a time that you were disobedient to your parents and what was your punishment like?
I was using my puppet beaver to bother my twin sister. I had a puppet beaver, and we were sitting in the back seat, and I kept bothering her, and my mom said, "Ricardo, por favor," which means, "Please, Richard, stop." And I didn't listen, and I kept bothering my sister, and she took the puppet beaver. Then it got stolen that night, like our car got broken into, and the beaver got stolen. And so she's never forgiven herself for taking the beaver away.
Oh no, you were crying, weren't you?
It ruined my childhood.
You were what, like 16, 17 years old?
Wow, come on, man. 19.
Hey, Karen.
Oh, hi.
Hey, Jody. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, what's up?
Hey, question for you. Tell me a story about a time that you were disobedient and what your punishment was like.
Oh, sure, I disobeyed. I don't know why I'm blanking right now. I actually have to think about this one.
Okay, so when I was younger, and even to this day, I have an obsession with ice cream. I love ice cream. When I was young, what I would do is I would eat ice cream and then I would leave it behind the couch and it would thaw and then my parents would have to clean up the mess. So it was a rule that I couldn't have ice cream. I couldn't touch the ice cream without asking for my parents' permission. So what they did is in the freezer, they put the ice cream at the very top shelf. And what I did one day, because I thought I was smart, climbed the freezer, but for some reason my hands were wet. So I actually got stuck. And my parents had to come and they had to get me down. And then they scolded me for climbing, but at the same time they were laughing. So I feel like it was a punishment in and of itself.
Okay, here's one. I wasn't a child. I was like a teenager. I really liked boys. So I met this boy at camp meeting. And at nighttime, I went on the beach with him.
Uh-oh.
Sat in the darkness and we held hands. And my dad came and found us, and I've never seen him more angry. He walked me up to our cabin. I was allowed to go out in the evenings anymore. Oh no! I felt so...
Daddy, I love him!
No. One time, obsessed with Demi Lovato. And she was coming to my city, and I was in a very conservative home, so secular music was not a thing. My friends bought me tickets, and I said I was going to get dinner or something, and I ended up going to this concert. And it just so happened that there was also a U.S. soccer game happening in the stadium next to the stadium where the concert was. As I was going to the concert, ran into my dad, who's a huge soccer fan, and I got caught. I think I got grounded.
Oh no!
Okay, so I was told that in class I need to concentrate and not be a distraction to other people because I had a problem talking too much. And then one day my friend and I got caught multiple times. So much so that the principal called my parents. And so when my mom came to pick me up, usually my sister and I would have shared doing the dishes after dinner. I then had to do the dishes by myself.
All right, up next, Tony Lloyd.
Justin.
Hey Tony, how's it going? I got a question for you. What was a time when you disobeyed your parents, and then what was the punishment like?
Disobeying my parents wasn't really an option. For my dad, the punishment was spankings. For my mom, it was a sad face and saying the phrase, "I'm really disappointed." And that was worse. I'd rather take the spanking than to disappoint my mom.
Oh man. Did your dad have a weapon of choice by any chance?
Yeah, his belt. That was his weapon of choice.
The buckle side or the other side?
No, the other side.
Oh, sounds like you got off easy. On the other side of this, did this change the way that you parent?
Mostly, yes. I think I was a young parent. I used spanking when the kids were little, but I definitely tried to use more reason, logic, that kind of thing.
Did it work?
No. As an older person, we had some grandchildren that came and lived with us for about 6 months. One of the main things we learned to do was to give them a choice. So instead of saying go to bed, if they were going to rebel about going to bed, we'd say, before you go to bed, would you rather put on your pajamas first or brush your teeth first?
Oh.
Because then they feel like they have autonomy, like they have agency, they have the ability to make a decision for themselves.
There you go. Pro tips. Love it.
All right.
Thank you so much. So here's why we're talking about these stories. We want to, over the next couple of gatherings, talk about the book of Jonah, which, distilled down to its very kind of childish form, is a story about disobedience and punishment. And it brings us to the question, what happens when we disobey God?
So we're going to have a 4-part series on the book of Jonah. Now, with the bit that we just concluded, it was structured around something that we were told not to do, but we did anyway. But when we go to Jonah, it's actually a little bit of an inversion, because he's actually told to do something and he refuses to do it. Now, it's the same spirit of rebellion and disobedience, but just inverted. And when you look at Jonah and you find him in Jonah chapter 1, you see that the word of the Lord comes to Jonah to go to Nineveh and preach against the city. But where does Jonah go? He goes down to Joppa in order to get all the way to Tarshish, which is actually the opposite way of Nineveh. If you're thinking like modern day geography, Nineveh is somewhere more Iraq, and Tarshish is like Spain. So if you have Israel in the middle, Nineveh's this way and Spain is that way, or maybe Spain's this way and Nineveh. Anyway, you know that Jonah's going the opposite way, and there is a key word that is used again and again in chapter 1, and it's this word, down. Jonah goes down to Joppa. Jonah goes down in the boat. And then as the story progresses and Jonah is tossed off the boat, he goes down into the waters. And this seems to be a theme that is actually telling us about the consequences of actually hearing the word of God, running away from it, that all we're headed towards is down, down, down. But here's the fascinating thing, and this is more in the Jonah chapter 2, but we'll just give a little bit of the game away, is that everywhere Jonah goes down, God is already ahead of him. He's ahead of him when he goes to Joppa. He's ahead of him when he goes to the boat, so much so that he actually causes the storm. And most potent of all, he's ahead of him when he goes into the belly of the whale. It reminds me of the psalm that says, where can I go from your presence? Where can I flee that you wouldn't be there? Even in the depths of Sheol, you are there. And I think back on my life, and I think in all the places that I actually disobeyed the Lord and I ran away from the will that he had for my life, I ran away from the clear instruction that he had for me. I had a rebellious and disobedient attitude, and for so long I thought that I was actually distancing myself from his presence, much like Jonah thought, and I was going down, down, down. But now as a grown man, I look back, I find exactly what Jonah chapter 1 actually gives us a glimpse into. That every single step downward that I took in disobedience, God was already there before I got there, ready to meet me. Now, there are some twists and turns in the way that Jonah's met. He's met by these sailors who are godless, but seem to revere the word of Yahweh even more than Jonah does. Jonah's met by this great fish who seems to be doing the bidding of Yahweh, of not even letting Jonah drown, which is what Jonah seems to desire. But every step down that Jonah takes, God's already present. And for what aim? Why is he present? In order to redeem Nineveh and in order to turn Jonah's heart. Now, I'm sure we'll talk about that a little more in our general session. But right now, as we go to our breakout groups, here's the question. As we think of Jonah and his way down, think of yourself. Do you remember times that you went down, down, down? And now how can you see, maybe in retrospect, that God had already gone ahead of your movement down? Or Maybe you're actually right in the middle of going down. This might be a moment to actually stop and consider where God is in the midst of your going down. So in your breakout groups as you're there, consider this. Did you go down? How did God precede you there? And maybe you're in the midst of down. Maybe you should stop and consider before you make another move. Where is God in the situation? Look forward to hearing what y'all got on the other side of this.